À l'ordre.
Order.
I call this meeting to order. Je déclare.
I call this meeting to order. Welcome to the second meeting of the special meeting of the House of Commons on the COVID-19 pandemic.
Reference on Monday, April 20th, the committee is meeting for the purpose of considering ministerial announcements, allowing members to present petitions and question ministers of the Crown, including the Prime Minister, in respect to the COVID-19 pandemic. Normally, there would be take-note debate after questions to ministers. However, since the House has been recalled for later today, this debate will not take place. La réunion d'aujourd'hui.
Today's meeting will be televised, like a typical House sitting.
To presenting petitions for a period not exceeding 15 minutes. I would like to remind the members that any petition presented during the meeting of the special committee must have already been certified by the clerk of petitions.
Once the members present their petitions, we ask them to please bring it here to the table.
Again, once a member has presented their petition, we ask that they please come and drop off the petition at the table. There won't be a page coming to you. Please stay 6 feet away from the people who are at the table. And I would also like to remind members who have presented petitions to drop them off again at the table. Presenting petitions. The Honourable Member for Thunder. I'm sorry?
Because I'm too close to him.
Kenora, I'm sorry, I was just, and everybody's, a lot of the men have grown beards and everybody's let their hair grow, so, and my eyes aren't as good as they used to be. The Honourable Member for Kenora.
Quarantine beard to fool you, Mr. Speaker. I'm happy to present a petition signed by hundreds of Canadians across 10 provinces and territories, which is calling on the government to take immediate action to improve rural broadband connectivity across Canada. Many Canadians in rural and remote regions of our country do not have access to reliable internet, and the signatories to this petition believe that this is an issue of equality, as internet is playing an increasingly vital role in areas, in all areas of life, and access to it prevents people from participating in our economy. Mr. Speaker, this has become ever more apparent for those who are now attempting to work, take classes.
On a point of order, we're not getting translation or interpretation. English to French is not working. Alors, si on peut avoir...
So, if we could...
Speaking in English, let me know when you hear it in French. Is there anything there? So it's happening here as well. It's not just a virtual thing that we have problems with the translation. I'm glad to hear that. Are we having French translation now? Are we having French translation? Is everything moving? Okay, everything is working. Maybe the Honourable Member for Kenora, if he can start off either right from the beginning or about halfway through, whichever he's more comfortable with.
His name again. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just like to once again say that I'm happy to present this petition, which has been signed by hundreds of Canadians across the country, calling for the government to take immediate action to improve rural broadband connectivity across Canada. The signatories to this petition believe that this is an issue of equality, as many people do not have access to reliable internet, particularly in our rural and remote areas of the country, and this has made things increasingly difficult as our society and our economy becomes more and more virtual. Mr. Speaker, this has become ever more apparent for those who are now attempting to work, take classes, or access services from home during the current COVID-19 crisis. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Presenting petitions.
Ms. May.
Ms. May, I was reminded to use the names because we are in a committee setting, not so I don't have to mention the ridings. Ms. May, please.
I don't know my own name anymore. I'm Saanich Gulf Islands. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise to present a petition in this committee meeting. It's from residents throughout Saanich Gulf Islands calling for further work to pursue marine protected areas. They note that the government goals are significant. World Parks Congress has called for significant no-take zones within marine protected areas, and specifically constituents of Saanich Gulf Islands are concerned to see the continuation of what used to be called the Strait of Georgia Marine Protected Area, now known as the Salish Sea Marine Protected Area. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Présentation de pétitions.
Presenting petitions.
Seeing none, we'll proceed to questions to ministers. We'll now proceed to the questioning of ministers. I would like to remind honourable members that no member shall be recognized for more than 5 minutes at a time, and that members may split their time with one or more members so indicated by the chair. Veuillez noter que
Please note that given the quick exchanges during this meeting, there will be a pause after every 45 minutes to allow employees who assist this session to locate themselves safely.
remind the honourable members that the guidelines are that the length of the question should also be reflected by the length of the answer. So try to stay within those, and I'll be enforcing that as we proceed. The Honourable, Mr. Scheer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to again draw the Prime Minister's attention to a very serious issue affecting employers all across the country, especially one in my own riding, Brandt Tractor. Many companies have acquired other assets, other businesses, and are unable to show a 30% drop in revenues because of the extra revenue from companies that they have acquired. There are over 3,000 people who work for Brandt, including 600 people who work for the company that they acquired, who are all facing layoffs if Brandt cannot be eligible for the same wage subsidy that has been made available to other employers. This is a technicality. There are suggestions that have been made to the federal government to allow for companies in the same situation to access this program. I did ask the Prime Minister about this a week ago. I wonder if he could give me an update as to whether or not these types of criteria will be broadened to allow for more workers to stay on the job.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We move forward quickly with measures to help as many Canadians as possible. Workers who want to remain on the payroll with the Canada wage subsidy, also people who've lost their paycheck with the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. We moved quickly on strong measures that would hit as many people as possible, but we recognize that there are gaps. That's why we brought in modifications and conversations with the other parties to adjust the period of time with which people could apply for their applications to the CERB or to the wage subsidy. We're also going to move forward on other measures as they come up. I will continue to look into the issue that the honourable member has brought up in regards to the company in his riding.
Mr. Scheer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do look forward to an update very quickly, as it is the end of April. Workers' jobs hang in the balance. Mr. Speaker, provinces' plans to ease health restrictions are dependent on their ability to dramatically ramp up testing. Private companies have already created rapid blood tests that can provide results in under 20 minutes. Now, these tests have been approved for use in Europe, Asia, and in the U.S., but in Canada, they're still, quote, under review. Will the Prime Minister commit to fast-tracking the approvals process so that provinces have access to the tests that they need?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are doing everything we can to ensure a fast, made-in-Canada response. Thousands of Canadian businesses have applied to produce innovative medical equipment, including new test kits. As of yesterday, Health Canada issued 113 new licenses for medical devices, including 15 additional test kits. Additional resources have been allocated to accelerate approvals, including recognizing or taking into account where approvals have been made elsewhere, but we will not compromise Canadian sovereignty or Canadian safety.
Mr. Scheer.
Mr. Speaker, in March, the Minister of Health signed an interim order to allow Health Canada to consider exactly that, other countries' approvals of medical products. Recent reports, however, indicate that there are over 50 companies who are waiting for approvals to distribute test kits. So, has Health Canada issued any approvals under this interim order?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
As of yesterday, Health Canada has approved 15 additional testing kits. We recognize how important testing is for the long-term reopening of the economy, and we need to make sure that we have that capacity right across the country. I salute the innovative Canadian businesses that have moved forward on solutions and look forward very much to seeing them come into place, but we cannot compromise Canadian safety. We have seen what happens elsewhere around the world when faulty test kits were relied upon. We need to make sure Canadians are safe.
Mr. Scheer.
We are, of course, talking about an interim order that specifically allows Health Canada to look at other approvals granted by other organizations like the European Union. So surely the Prime Minister would acknowledge that the EU standards and EU certification standards, when there are Canadian companies manufacturing those test kits, obviously we're not talking about choosing between speed and effectiveness. Other countries have been able to impose and implement a fast-track system. Canada should be as well. But Mr. Speaker, in 2018, a federal government document on pandemic planning advised that Canada's approach to dealing with pandemics should not be to follow the lead of the WHO, but to make decisions based on Canadian expertise and intelligence. Can the Prime Minister explain why his government ignored that report?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister, in 30 seconds or less, please.
First of all, Mr. Speaker, in regards to the first half of his question, we recognize how important it is to approve reliable testing quickly, but for made-in-Canada tests, it is unlikely that they got EU approval or US approval before Canadian approval. We're going through all the steps necessary for those Canadian innovators as quickly as possible. And in regards to our approach to this, we have been following international safety standards every single day, but making sure we're protecting Canadians with all the best information we have. We've been doing that since the public health officials gathered all our provincial health officials on January 2nd, and we will continue to.
Monsieur Blanchet.
Mr. Blanchet. Hello. While representatives of the government are discussing the treatment that should be reserved for seniors and how we're going to get out of this imbroglio, we have to understand the restrictions. And I want to go back to another challenge. I'm not going to cast anyone's good intentions into doubt, but there are some historical issues between the bank and the government. The Prime Minister yet indicated yesterday that companies that practice fiscal avoidance would not have access to government programs. I just want to ensure that this statement was very clear and precise. Did I understand correctly that the government is implementing clear measures and clear tracking for companies that practice tax avoidance, that they will be identified, and that they won't have access to emergency support programs for COVID-19? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Companies who do practice fiscal avoidance will face consequences in our system. That will continue to be the case even when it's not a pandemic. We're taking unprecedented measures with the objective of helping workers in Canada to keep their jobs and to support them during this difficult time. There is an audit process that has been established for the extraordinary measures that have been implemented, and at the same time, the fight against tax evasion continues to be a priority. The U.S. we have made unprecedented investments in the CRA to look at tax evasion, and we're going to continue this throughout the pandemic to ensure that there will be consequences for any company that does not pay its fair share of taxes. Mr. Blanchet. Well, there is a difference between tax evasion and tax avoidance and what is legal under Canadian law. That's the whole scandal behind this. I want to be specific. If a bank doing business in Canada uses tax avoidance by putting money outside of the country to pay less tax in Canada, would such a bank be necessarily excluded from support programs for COVID-19? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. We're always going to continue to be very severe with those companies that don't pay their fair share of taxes. And that's why we've established more tools at the CRA in recent years to ensure that everyone pays their fair share of taxes. Our priority to help Canadians and to help workers was to give them the necessary support, and that is going to continue. Mr. Blanchet. If a bank wants to profit from such programs and they use tax avoidance, will they be excluded? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. We're going to ensure that we support workers across the country who need assistance, and at the same time, we're going to continue to fight against tax avoidance and tax evasion. There will be consequences for all those who do so. Mr. Blanchet, I'm not convinced that Canadians and Quebecers will be more reassured about this. But now I have another question for the Prime Minister. Can we agree that the effects of this pandemic on seniors apply to everyone over 75 years of age in the same manner? It doesn't matter how old they are and how we manage this crisis. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. We recognize that seniors who are the most vulnerable in general are the most vulnerable to the impacts of COVID-19. Someone who doesn't have resources or the necessary equipment and who's are having a hard time paying their rent because they have low income. They'll have additional costs for food and the delivery of medication, and they will be facing greater challenges than seniors who are financially comfortable. Mr. Singh.
Mr. Speaker, my question is very simple. Will the Prime Minister commit, like other countries have done, including France, Denmark, and Poland, to guarantee that if a company is registered in a tax haven, that company will not receive public support? Yes or no?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, since 2015, we have made significant investments in the CRA to fight against fiscal avoidance and tax avoidance and tax evasion. That is something that we've taken very seriously as a country, and there will always be strong consequences for anyone who avoids to pay their fair share of taxes. At the same time, we've been investing to ensure that Canadians get the supports they need, regardless of whether they work for small or large companies.
Singh.
I asked very clearly, if a company is registered in a tax haven, will they get help? Yes or no? And we got an evasive answer. I'm going to ask again, very clearly. Other countries have done this. Poland has done it. Denmark has committed to it. France has committed to it. Will the government commit today, very simply, to say if a company is cheating the public of paying its fair share through using legal tax havens, will this government commit today to say, no, we will not give them public health if they are cheating the public of contributing to our economy, to our society?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The work we've done from the very beginning has been focused on helping Canadians. Canadians who work for small businesses, Canadians who work for large businesses, Canadians work for franchises, Canadians work for mom and pop shops. We know that COVID-19 has caused people across the country in different sectors, in different industries, to lose their paychecks. And our focus has been on making sure that people get the help they need to pay for groceries, to pay for their rent, regardless of the size of company they work for. At the same time, we continue to be very severe on tax avoidance and tax evasion. We will continue to invest in the Canada Revenue Agency to make sure there are consequences for people who avoid paying their taxes.
Mr. Singh.
It seems like the government is more concerned about students getting more help than they need than $25 billion of lost revenue due to offshore tax havens. Yeah. They seem more concerned about families receiving more help than they need than ensuring that that companies like Loblaws get away with not paying $400 million in taxes, why does the government take this approach that they're so concerned about denying help to people who are in need, but allow businesses to get away with not paying their fair share? Why are the government's priorities so mixed up?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I'm sure the honourable member isn't suggesting that someone who works as a grocery clerk in Loblaws shouldn't be available to get support from the government because of behaviour of what their head office has done. We will continue to pursue tax avoidance and tax evasion with all the tools of this government because we take it very seriously that everyone pay their fair share of taxes. At the same time, we're going to continue to deliver significant help for students, for seniors, for workers right across the country.
Singh.
Des milliards par année.
Billions of dollars go to tax havens and is lost. The government has to pay $1.8 billion to Loblaws because our tax rules allow companies to get around the rules. But this isn't what's worrying the government. What is worrying the government is that students are getting too much money and are staying home. I don't know whether the Prime Minister knows it, but $2,000 a month barely covers the basic needs. Why is the government making this choice? It's a choice to make lives more difficult for students rather than dealing with the major companies that are exploiting our system. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. What concerns the government is to make sure that workers and students and Canadians are getting the assistance they need. That is what we are working on, and that is why we have put forward the Canada Student Benefit. But we didn't stop there. We know that students need jobs. That's why we have improved the summer job program for students. We will also create thousands of jobs for students as well. We will improve volunteerism with amounts of $1,000 to $5,000 for students. We will increase significantly assistance to students for their tuition. We are there to help those in need, and that is the priority, not politics. There is substance here, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to split my time with Monsieur Reyes. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister just said that it would be highly unlikely for a Canadian company to have received approvals in either the European Union or in the U.S. for testing kits without having received approval here in Canada. I would like to draw his attention to a company called BTNX, who has been approved to sell their testing kits in the U.S. under Section D of the FDA's Policy for Diagnostic Tests for Coronavirus Disease 2019 during the public health emergency. They are based in Markham, Mr. Speaker. Can the Prime Minister explain why BTNX has received approval in the U.S. under the FDA, but is still waiting for Health Canada approval for testing kits?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
I thank the member opposite for highlighting an excellent case of an innovative Canadian company that has moved forward with a world-class product. We will ensure that it goes through the proper expectations and qualifications in Canada, because we will not be giving up our sovereignty to the United States or to any other country. We will ensure that the products we approve in Canada are safe for Canadians. We've seen other countries take very different approaches that we would not recommend in Canada. We're going to ensure that every step of the way, what we do is safe for Canadians.
Monsieur Reyes.
Mr. Reyes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since the beginning of this crisis, we have felt friction between the federal government and the various provinces, particularly with Quebec. On April 23rd, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Health indicated that seniors' residence could be a national project in the long term. They even referred to the Canadian Health Act. Then, on April 25th, the Prime Minister attempted to clarify those comments, saying that he didn't intend to get involved or interfere in areas of provincial jurisdiction. I think that when it's a pandemic, the last thing we need is a constitutional crisis and a government that's trying to interfere. I would like the Prime Minister to take this opportunity to tell us clearly that there is no intent to interfere in areas under provincial jurisdiction, such as the healthcare system, particularly in the case of seniors and long-term care homes. It's already difficult enough for the Quebec government to manage this. I apologize, the Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think that my colleague has seen from the beginning that there is no intention by the federal government to interfere, but rather to collaborate with all of the provinces. It's particularly true, Mr. Speaker, in Quebec, where we are seeing a very difficult situation. We're thinking of our seniors and what is happening in the long-term care homes. Mr. Speaker, we're working in cooperation with Quebec. I'm in contact with a number of ministers on a regular basis, as well as the Minister for Quebec and the Prime Minister, who are speaking together for the common good. Mr. Reyes. Mr. Speaker, yesterday Quebec decided, as many other provinces, to put in place a progressive release of the social distancing rules. For our part, for some days, the Prime Minister seems to publicly be questioning these in the press conferences. That is, the decisions of Quebec in particular with regard to this gradual return to normal. Could he tell us today in the House if he agrees, yes or no, with the plan that was proposed by the government of Quebec? The Minister.
And I will say that I'm incredibly proud of the collaborative work of the provinces, territories, and the federal government to come up with a shared set of guidelines that will help us ensure that as we move together, and obviously separately, given our own epidemiological situation, our own particular approach, that we have a set of guidelines that will protect the health of all Canadians. And I know that the Prime Minister worked very diligently with his counterparts with all of provinces and territories, and we're thrilled that there is such collaboration across the country. Thank you.
Monsieur Reyes.
Mr. Reyes, 30 seconds for the question. I will ask it again in a simple way. I'd like to know if the federal government, the Prime Minister himself, who speaks on a daily basis, agrees, yes or no, with the return to normal plan put in place by the government of Quebec. Yes or no? It's simple. The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, and I think, as my counterpart indicates, in fact, these conversations are ongoing with the Prime Minister and his counterparts across the country. This is a collaborative process, and I am thrilled that we have a shared set of guidelines that all provinces have agreed to use to guide them in the safe practices as we move forward to reopen our economies. It's a delicate process. In fact, much of it is being developed at a local level because, of course, situations vary so greatly across the provinces and territories, but those guidelines that are in place will ensure that provinces and territories have a roadmap that will protect the health of Canadians. Thank you.
Ms. Bloch.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Reports in the news about a surge in counterfeit personal protective equipment coming into Canada are deeply concerning to many Canadians. Can Minister Anand advise us as to the extent of the problem?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our priority is always to make sure that we have safe, effective equipment and supplies in the hands of our frontline healthcare workers. Given the complexity of the global supply chain, ensuring quality of the product is extremely important. We are working with established suppliers and distributors as well as quality assurance experts, and we have strong processes in place to help ensure that the supplies we receive meet all necessary standards. In addition, the Public Health Agency of Canada has robust testing measures in place. We must make sure that equipment is safe.
Ms. Bloch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to ask the Minister how many shipments, or if she can tell us who is ordering these supplies.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The process that we are following at Public Services and Procurement is that we are ordering based on orders that have come from the provinces, based on what Public Health tells us they've requested.
I'm just going to stop the clock for a second. I just want to remind everyone that the length of the question should be reflected by the length of the answer. I know it's not always easy, but I just wanted to point that out so that we're well aware of the guidelines that we're using. Ms. Block, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Can the minister tell us which companies are ordering these counterfeit supplies?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We, as I said, are engaged with a number of diverse suppliers internationally and domestically to ensure that our frontline healthcare workers have the supplies that they need, and we are engaged with rigorous quality assurance controls internationally and domestically.
Ms. Block.
Thank you very much. Can the minister at least tell us what measures are in place to ensure that Canada is only buying PPE from reputable sources?
The Honourable Minister.
There are a number of points at which quality assurance is occurring, Mr. Speaker. We are ensuring that manufacturers are required to certify that they are meeting specific standards. New controls by the Chinese government for international procurements require additional oversight, and the PSBC is working closely with public health that makes sure that there is quality assurance taking place right here in Canada in Canadian warehouses.
Ms. Block.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The CBSA has confirmed border agents have stopped shipments from coming into Canada that contain suspected fake PPE. Can Minister Blair confirm how many shipments the CBSA has seized?
The Honourable Minister.
I can tell you that CBSA very vigorously checks the quality and the provenance of the protection equipment that is coming in. If it is determined that it is counterfeit and therefore in violation of the agreements, it is subject to seizure. I don't have the precise number of seizures that have been made, but I can assure the member opposite that CBSA is very rigorous in ensuring that no counterfeit material is allowed into the country.
Ms. Block.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Can the minister advise us as to what measures are being taken to stop these shipments from coming to Canada?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned, we are taking a number of measures to make sure quality assurance occurs in the country of origin with direct communication with the manufacturers, on-the-ground logistics support that we've engaged from private corporations as well as the embassy in China. And then once again, when the goods arrive in Canada, they are quality tested by the Public Health Agency of Canada.
Ms. Block.
Thank you very much. Can the minister please advise us of what those measures are?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned, Public Health Agency of Canada is taking extreme caution and extreme care to make sure that no defective goods are delivered to frontline healthcare workers. That is a process that we take very seriously because of our commitment to our frontline healthcare workers.
Mr. Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The minimum $5,000 income rule to qualify for CERB is cutting out Albertans who have struggled to find work because of challenges facing the oil and gas industry. Brenda is a constituent of mine who was laid off from her oil and gas job in 2018. She's been on EI from spring 2019 until earlier this year. As her EI doesn't count as income under the program, she doesn't qualify for CERB. She's been trying her best to find work, but like other former industry workers, she's had a tough time. The challenge of building pipelines, compounded with the current pandemic, has only made the job search harder. Why is the government cutting out unemployed oil and gas workers like Brenda from receiving CERB?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am very well aware of situations like the constituent that the member speaks of and can assure him that recent changes to regulatory changes to the CERB, if Brenda's EI expired since December 29th of last year, would qualify her, in fact, for the CERB.
Mr. Howland.
Does the government have plans for helping oil and gas workers who've been out of work in recent years and whose job search has been made even harder because of COVID-19? Yes or no?
Mr. Speaker, we are very aware of the intense pressures that oil and gas workers are facing, and let me start by expressing the great sympathy that I think everyone in this House today feels for the people of Fort McMurray, who are facing a triple blow of a flood, of the coronavirus, and of a deeply depressed price for oil. When it comes to employing oil and gas workers, the support that our government has given directly for the cleanup of orphan wells, $1.7 billion, is going to put a lot of people back to work very, very quickly.
Mr. Hallam.
The minimum $20,000 payroll requirement is disqualifying small family businesses and self-employed businesses. This includes hardworking truck drivers risking their lives to provide essential services, and they're being disqualified from receiving the CEBA loans. These are businesses that are most at risk from the current crisis. Lisa is self-employed and runs a consultancy in my riding. She's worked hard to grow her business, planning to hire an employee before COVID-19 and plan to finally draw a salary next month. Now with the pandemic, she's struggling to keep the doors open. Why are self-employed business owners like Lisa disqualified from CEBA?
The Honourable Minister.
I want to thank the honourable member for that very good question, and to that employer and that business owner, know that we are working with her and with many across the country. We have provided many supports for business owners like her. If she has seen a drop in revenue, she can access the wage subsidy. But one of the things I've heard a lot from business owners like the one you just described is the enormous expense of rent. And we have just released support for rent, 75% for rent relief for those small businesses who have been severely hurt during this time. And we will continue to work to support businesses like the one you just described. Thank you.
Mr. Helen.
A family-run nail salon in my riding is struggling to stay open because of the pandemic. As they don't have any employees, they don't meet the $20,000 payroll requirement for CEBA. Yes or no, does the minister believe that small family-run businesses like this nail salon are not being affected by the pandemic?
The Honourable Minister.
Having grown up in a business just like the one that the honourable member just described, I can assure you that that business and every business is at the heart of the work that we do. So we very much are concerned about that business and all businesses in this country. And we will continue to listen. The work is not done, and we will continue to ensure that businesses all across the country, particularly those that are contributing so much to our communities, are indeed supported during this important and critical time. Thank you.
Mr. Hallan.
Krista owns a massage clinic and the property it rests on. She was offered a loan from her bank, but worries that she wouldn't be able to keep up with interest payments. On top of that, the land tax, management fees, and utilities. She would like to apply for a CEBA, but cannot because of the minimum $20,000 payroll. Again, why are small business owners like Krista ineligible for CEBA, and should we not lift the $20,000 payroll requirement?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, the honourable member, for that important question. And that employer and entrepreneur is at the very heart of all of our communities across the country. I don't think that any of us couldn't walk down any of our streets and not see a wonderful business like that. And I want to assure those businesses that we continue to work, we continue to listen, and we continue to find solutions. One of the things that we have done, of course, to help businesses like this one is to make sure that their costs are kept low. So we've deferred paying the GST and HST and customs duties for those types of businesses so that their costs are maintained low during this difficult time.
Mr. Williamson.
Mr. Speaker, democratic governments around the world have had to relearn a tough lesson concerning totalitarian regimes. A government that lies to its own people will lie to the world. Beijing's management of the coronavirus has been called its Chernobyl moment by scholars around the world, including our own Irwin Cotler. Will the government join calls for an investigation of China's COVID-19 conduct, as Australia is asking?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me begin by saying that I defer to no one in my tremendous respect for Irwin Cotler, who is, I think, a moral authority recognized by all members of this House. When it comes to reporting on the coronavirus in countries around the world, it is absolutely the case that we all help our own citizens and we help each other with candor and transparency. And it is also the case that we need to work together. Having said that, I think all members of this House will agree that a democracy will always be more transparent than any authoritarian regime.
Mr. Williamson.
Canada's ambassador to China, Dominic Barton, has lavished praise on Beijing's COVID-19 response. Does the government share their ambassador's high opinion of China's response to COVID-19?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I began by saying that I think we share a high regard for Irwin Cotler, and let me simply say that I personally have a very high regard for Ambassador Dominic Barton, who is the right man at the right place at the right time. Ambassador Barton is absolutely central to our procurement work in China today, and his extensive business experience is saving Canadian lives.
Mr. Williamson.
Grudgingly, it seems the government is now open to reviewing the World Health Organization's response to COVID-19. But, Mr. Speaker, officials from this international agency have thus far refused to testify before the Health Committee. Will the government join us in calling on WHO officials to testify before our House of Commons Committee?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there was nothing grudging at all in the very candid and important conversation our Minister of International Development, Corinna Gould, had recently with Dr. Tedros of the WHO. In that conversation, she talked about the essential role the WHO plays as the only international organization that coordinates the world's health response, and we need that in a pandemic. She also spoke about how important it will be to have a post-crisis review.
Mr. Williamson.
Canada is grateful for Taiwan's donation of 500,000 surgical masks to Canada, to our country. Is the government willing to support Taiwan's WHO membership as a condition of WHO reforms?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's One China policy is clear and has been the policy of successive Canadian governments. We continue to support Taiwan's meaningful participation in international multilateral organizations where its presence is important. Taiwan's role as an observer in the WHO is very helpful. And let me also point out we participate together with Taiwan in APEC.
Mr. Williamson.
Canada's fish and seafood harvesters face unprecedented uncertainty, and the fishery minister has said, quote, "It is up to each individual area to determine if fishermen want to delay or to stay on shore," end quote. While this promise has held true for harvesters from the minister's own riding who are permitted to fish, the minister has refused to open up other lobster fisheries, including LFA 24, despite the fact fish harvesters voted in favor of going fishing on May the 6th. Is the government aware the fisheries minister is picking winners and losers by imposing a double standard on Canadian harvesters and adding to uncertainties in the Atlantic fishery?
L'Honorable Ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
The support of both the harvesters and processors. And after considering a variety of factors, including conservation and protection of stock as well as the health and safety of harvesters, our government is in constant communication with provincial and industry partners to discuss these issues.
Mr. Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Back to the Deputy Prime Minister. Would the government prefer to see its One China policy under a democratic China, or is it content to see One China policy under a totalitarian regime?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, in 15 seconds or less, please.
Well, since it's just 15 seconds or less, I think everyone in this House believes in democracy, and that is something that we are working on and demonstrating in our debates today.
Mr. Macaulay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On February 26, 2020, over a month after Canada's first COVID-19 case, the Minister of Public Health tabled the Public Health Agency's departmental results report in this House. In it, the report stated, we optimize the National Emergency Strategic Stockpile. In their 2019-2020 report, departmental plan, which covers up to March 31st of this year, the plan said to enhance the National Emergency Strategic Stockpile. And yet the Minister of Public Health on April 1 said the stockpile was not sufficient. Why?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as we've talked about numerous times in this House, anticipating a global pandemic of this size just was a very difficult thing to do. And as we saw the demand increase across Canada, of course, we realized that the pandemic stockpile, which had been assembled over a number of years, was simply not going to be sufficient to meet the needs of healthcare workers across Canada. Provinces and territories were also struggling, and of course, we worked very closely with our counterparts to make sure that we could procure devices for healthcare workers across the country.
Mr. McCauley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will note that the report tabled in this very House this very year stated that that they had optimized the stockpile, and yet they did not. The departmental report, which covered up to March 31st, stated as well they were to enhance it. Now, is there a formula to determine how much equipment needs to be in the emergency stockpile?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And in fact, the National Emergency Stockpile was never meant to stockpile enough protective equipment for a pandemic of this size. In fact, it's there to provide a backup to provinces that may be having a provincial outbreak or a regional local outbreak in which they need support to augment the stockpiles that they have at the provinces and territories level. Having said that, of course, we're reviewing now the National Emergency Stockpile's role in terms of protection for Canadians as we move forward.
Mr. McCauley.
Government's own reports said that they had optimized the amount of the stockpile. How do they determine what is optimized?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The National Emergency Stockpile doesn't just hold personal protective equipment. In fact, it's not the majority of... Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. McCauley.
In the Operations Committee last week, the Public Works Minister justified choosing Amazon to distribute PPE in Canada instead of Canada Post by saying Amazon was not a foreign company and was in fact a Canadian company. Would the Minister advise the House when Jeff Bezos took out Canadian citizenship?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the intention of my comments last week at committee were as follows. Amazon entered into an agreement with Canada. There's a Canadian operation of that company that is working with Purolator as well as Canada Post to ensure effective and efficient distribution to frontline healthcare workers, which is the priority of this government.
We have a point of order from yes, from Mr. McCauley.
I believe the time to respond should be equivalent to the length of the question. Thank you.
Yes, we are working on it, and we'll try to get that a little bit in line.
Now, in the very
Mr. McCauley.
In the very same committee, the Public Works Deputy Minister would only state he expected that the contaminated and substandard PPE would be replaced at no charge to Canadian taxpayers. Would these contaminated and non-compliant masks be replaced 100% without 1 penny of added cost to Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the corporation has assured us that they will not be charging us for the masks that were defective.
Mr. McCauley.
A spokesperson for PSPC then went on to state that the substandard N95 masks would not actually be replaced free of charge if we actually use them for other non-medical purposes. Why would we pay suppliers in China full price for shoddy PPE and then use those items for non-medical purposes?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there is still testing going on to see if those masks can be repurposed for non-medical purposes, and so this is a question that I'll have to report back to the House when that assessment is complete.
Mr. McCauley, you have 15 seconds for a question and 15 seconds for an answer.
Okay, what is the non-medical use that that the government is considering for these substandard masks?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, a majority of the masks that were defective in terms of their straps, and it's being determined whether those straps can be replaced and then repurposed.
Mr. Melillo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and through you to the Minister of Small Business, I would like to note that many small businesses in the Kenora riding are in the tourism industry, and this is normally a huge sector for our economy, especially in the coming summer months. But due to border closures and due to interprovincial travel recommendations, this sector will be hit very hard. Places like Temple Bay Lodge, places like Laxwell's Golden Eagle Resort in my riding are going to be struggling. So can the Minister tell the House if the government is planning any supports for the tourism industry?
The Honourable Minister.
I want to thank the honourable member for that really important question, and those are certainly places where so many people have spent time enjoying those particular sites, and it's extraordinary. For those businesses in the tourism sector and in all sectors, we're helping them with the many measures, whether it is to help keep their employees on staff, or whether it's to help them with cash flow, or to help them keep their expenses low. That's how we are helping them. We'll continue to do that.
Mr. Melillo.
But many businesses, particularly our seasonal operations, they rely on programs like the Canada Summer Jobs, which they may face difficulty accessing if they're not able to open on time. Similarly, the emergency wage subsidy disqualifies many seasonal businesses from being able to access it. So will the time frames of these programs be extended to accommodate struggling seasonal businesses?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can confirm from the perspective of Canada Summer Jobs that the time frame has actually been extended till February of 2021 for reasons exactly as put forth by the member.
Mr. Melillo.
And I've heard from many business owners as well that are now eligible for some of the loans and programs, whether it's due to a financial threshold, being a new startup, maybe they can't demonstrate past revenue. So will there be any flexibility for these startups and for some of these smaller companies who don't meet the current criteria?
The Honourable Minister.
We have indeed put out support for those very companies that would need some additional support. So whether it's through the Industrial Research Assistance Program or the regional development agencies or through Futurepreneur for young entrepreneurs, in addition to the many measures that we have put out, the idea here is to have comprehensive support to help all of our businesses, many of our businesses and entrepreneurs throughout the country. Thank you.
Mr. Melillo.
And many businesses in my riding are also facing challenges with internet access. A lack of reliable internet has proven to be a barrier, and it has been exacerbated due to the COVID-19 crisis. So can the government tell us what steps they will take in order to rectify this and ensure that reliable internet is available in all parts of Canada?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question and the issue about rural broadband in his region. We know even before the COVID-19 crisis began, the government recognized that fast, reliable and affordable high-speed internet is a necessity, not a luxury for all Canadians, including those living in rural and remote communities. Since 2015, we've helped connect more than 400,000 households to high-speed internet, and we are going to continue to invest.
Mr. Melillo.
Communities in Northern Ontario have limited health care capacity, Mr. Speaker, and they'd be devastated by a broad spread outbreak of COVID-19. That is why I have joined local mayors, Indigenous leaders, as well as our provincial colleagues in calling for cottagers to stay home instead of coming to their secondary residences in my riding. Nonetheless, as I've already mentioned, our economy is very dependent on this tourism. So is there going to be a plan from this government coming out of this crisis to continue to promote Canadian tourism and ensure that the sector will thrive going forward?
L'Honorable Ministre.
The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Chair.
Is hard hit by COVID-19, and we are working tirelessly to mitigate the impacts on the Canadian economy. Strong measures have been put in place, as one of my colleagues has indicated earlier, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. We're also investing $675 million in 6 of our regional agencies, as well as $287 million in the CFDC-CAE network to support small businesses in rural community, particularly in the sector of tourism.
We'll now take a brief pause so that the console operators can switch. L'échange a été fait.
So they did change places. We're going to continue. Ms. LaRouche. Thank you very much, Chair. Today, I would like to talk once again about the precarious financial situation of seniors as the Bloc's credit for seniors and also for the status of women. In a briefing presented by a Quebec Seniors Association in 2019 to the Standing Committee of the Status of Women, entitled The Challenges of Female Seniors in Canada, we can read what the contemporary issues are of female seniors in Canada. They outlive their life partners, they live with little money, and they are caregivers in an aging population, and worse still. The current crisis certainly doesn't help this situation, and nothing yet has been proposed to help them to get through this crisis. Does the government not believe that our proposals to increase old age pension by $120 a month and to enhance the GIS for all those after 65 years of age, to suspend the obligation to remove a part of their retirement pension investments, and to make private pension funds priority creditors and lower the price of medications? This is not a luxury for female seniors, but a necessity. It's time to take action. The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Chair. After working hard throughout their lives, Canadians deserve a peaceful retirement, and Canada Pension Fund and Old Age Security and will be reviewed, and we will offer an additional credit for GST, $400 per adult, and we're cutting the RIF contribution by 25%. That is obligatory, and we are delaying the payment of taxes until the end of August. So we are going to continue to support seniors and retirees. Ms. LaRouche, thank you very much. The 25% and the GST, that's not enough. So the government helps this community because in a crisis because it makes their burden lighter, but the provinces and Quebec often have to step in to provide funding for community groups. They are affected by this crisis and they need support. And Chair, they need stable and recurrent funding. They can't be begging at our doors every year. They have serious needs, and some programs are running out. Can the government commit to Quebec and the provinces to make foreseeable funding for community groups? The Honourable Minister.
Share the members' passion for the work that charity groups and not-for-profit organizations do across this country, and that's why we've set up a $350 million emergency community support fund that will support charities and not-for-profit organizations in their important work. We also made sure that they are eligible for the 75% wage subsidy. We've also contributed directly through things like Kids Help Phone and the United Way. These are really important organizations that, as the member points out, are the fabric of our community, and we're grateful to partner with them during this difficult time.
Madame LaRouche.
Ms. LaRouche. The wage subsidy is nice, but I'm talking about after the crisis as well. At the same time, the elderly are often the most vulnerable to this virus. We've seen this everywhere. The provinces is struggling to deal with this situation. There's underfunding in health, particularly when the government does not give the provinces enough. They don't refund the taxes that our citizens pay. I want the government to commit, as we've asked, to increase and to index health transfers as we've requested. The Honourable Minister.
And to help the provinces and territories with the surge of health activity during this pandemic, we increased funding by $500 million to ensure that they would be able to have the supports and services necessary across their communities. And this funding is in addition to the $40 billion that we already provide to provinces and territories each year. We're going to continue to work with provinces and territories to assess how this money is supporting them and what other supports that we can provide as they adjust to the new normal with COVID. Thank you very much.
Monsieur Perron.
Mr. Perron. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question will concern agriculture. It's a serious time as we speak. The farmers have decisions that they need to make. Do they seed their crops? Do they grow soya? They're afraid they won't have the labor. There are concrete measures that could be taken by the government, in particular, ensure the crops. The risks have to be insured. We need the government to tell producers, seed your crops and we'll be there for you. Could we get an official commitment today from the government? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate my colleagues' cooperation. At present, our producers are making decisions, and that is why we're working very closely on a regular basis, on a daily basis even, in cooperation with their representatives, and we're discussing with producers in order to really identify the best way to help them, in addition to the mechanisms that are already put in place and announced for them. $5 billion to Agriculture Canada, helping producers to bring in temporary foreign workers with sums for each worker. Thank you. I expected answers like this last week, but today it's a time to take action, and I'm talking to farmers on a daily basis. They need answers. They need firm commitments. We're talking about the amounts that were given to fund farming. There's still debt. They're very much in debt. They need an injection of capital without increasing their debt levels. When we talk about temporary foreign workers, that's another measure, but we need to ensure that there's crop insurance. There's ways to do it with agri-stability. There's a way to do it in an urgent fashion with these emergency funds. So I'm asking the Minister, when will we have an announcement to this effect? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In fact, there is a range of programs, a risk management program, agri-stability, which ensures losses of income, crop insurance, agri-stability, which is in cooperation. And in fact, all these programs are in cooperation with the provinces in order to ensure the best ways, the best mechanisms to respond quickly to farmers. Mr. Perron. Well, there are simple things that can be done when it comes to temporary foreign workers, accelerate the processing of visas, allow workers who are already here to have open permits so they can work anywhere, give financial incentives to ensure that labor is encouraged to go and work on the farms. This is what we're talking about today in our proposals. We talked about it in a press conference this morning. In the countryside, there is urgency to take action. People need to be reassured. These are agricultural entrepreneurs who are entrepreneurs, in fact. They're looking at the risks. They have no guarantees. If the vegetables are going to rot in the fields, then they can't do anything. We need a firm commitment. I'm not the only person saying that there's an emergency, an urgency to take action. University of Dalhousie Prof said it. We lose crops every year, but with COVID in the fall, we're going to have shortages on the market. The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to reassure my colleague that these discussions, this work is ongoing day and night with industry partners, with producers, with processors, with the provinces. Very significantly, there are programs that already exist. Agri-stability, for example. I know the producers know this. They already have access to advances under these programs. There are different initiatives as well at the provincial level that are put in place with funding of 60% of the federal government, 40% by the provinces. So there are many initiatives that have already put in place, and I would say that the federal government is transferring funds to the provinces, which can improve the pay of essential workers, including those in the food industry. Let's look at what the Quebec government has done by offering an increase in salary for these two categories in food processing, etc., and it benefits both programs. I would like to remind the members to ask their questions and respond through the chair.
Mr. Angus.
Speaker, I am so proud of how Canadians have come together with incredible determination and solidarity, and it's our role in this Parliament to help them what they need. Because whether it was a crisis in long-term care or the fact that we didn't have the PPE for our frontline workers, Canadians weren't prepared. Canada was not prepared, and we can never leave them in that position again. And so to the Minister of Middle-Class Prosperity, it became clear that within a week of COVID, millions of Canadians did not have enough savings to pay their rent. I want to ask this government what commitment they're going to make to work with the New Democrats to ensure that Canadian workers and families are never, ever again left in such a precarious financial position.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I can tell you that since day one, we have been working hard to develop an economic response plan to help all Canadians, all workers, businesses, to be able to go through this pandemic. And we will continue to support all Canadians so they can put food on their table and they can pay their bills.
Mr. Angus.
I really appreciate that answer. I guess the question that I'm asking, though, is where do we go from here? Because, you know, it's not the billionaires who stepped up, but it was the personal support workers and the grocery store clerks and the cleaners working for $14 an hour that have put themselves on the line. And they know going back to that old normal. I'm asking what steps will we take? Is $2,000 a month the new baseline to ensure financial security for workers across this country, and will the federal government play a role in ensuring that that's the new baseline?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our top priority since the beginning has always been the health and welfare of Canadians. As you probably have seen, we have developed an economic response that will help Canadians, workers, and businesses. The Canada Emergency Response Benefit helps Canadians across the country to be able to pay their bills during this very unprecedented time. And we will continue to find other programs to support Canadians through this very difficult time.
Angus.
Thank you very much. Well, there's one way we could help, because families in the rural north, they're doing their part to flatten the curve. They're at home with their children who are getting schooled online. They're working at home. And yet, if you're living in a rural area, you're getting hosed and you're getting fleeced by companies like Bell. I have a family that got a bill for $650 a month. I have another family that have to drive into town to the Tim Hortons so their kids can sit in the car and do their homework. I'm asking this government, everybody has to step up in the age of COVID, and that includes corporations. So what steps will this government take to make the telecom carriers like Bell play their part and stop fleecing rural northern families?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, as we have discussed already this afternoon, improved internet access for Canadians in remote northern rural communities is absolutely a priority. It's been a priority for our government from before this crisis, and the member opposite is entirely right that the crisis has underscored the importance of rural broadband access for children, for their parents. And when it comes to corporate responsibility in this crisis, I agree with the member opposite. We all have to do our part, and I think we're seeing essential workers, many of them very poorly paid, doing heroic acts every day, and we expect corporate Canada to step up too.
Mr. Angus.
Thank you. I really appreciate that answer. I look forward to the next steps to make sure that corporate Canada, when it comes to rural telecom, helps out. First Nation communities are doing enormous amount of work to protect their people from COVID. But in the far north, where we have many communities with overcrowded homes and poor medical service, the only tool they have is the complete lockdown and shutdown of their communities. And they are keeping their communities safe, but the economic impact of that means devastation to the small air carriers and airports like in Moosonee that service community regions like Treaty 9. The beating of COVID cannot include the loss of air service across the north from bankruptcy. So I'm asking the minister, what steps will he take to work with and ensure that coming out of COVID, that our air transport into the northern Indigenous communities remains strong?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. Very important question. We know the essential service nature of air travel into remote and Indigenous communities, particularly 96 First Nations communities and 50 more Inuit communities. This is something that the government has moved quite swiftly to address by assuring financial stability, funding the territories with in the case of the Yukon, $3.6 million in emergency funding for the airlines, $8.7 million for the Northwest Territories, and $5 million for Nunavut. This is something that we'll continue to do, and in respect of First Nations in flying communities, we're working actively to bridge that gap because we know the nature of that essential service. Thank you.
Ms. Gallant.
Tests for COVID-19 antibodies manufactured in Canada are being exported to and approved in other G7 countries, but the government won't allow them to be used here. Why not?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I am so proud of Health Canada and the civil services that have worked so hard to expedite approval of test kits for use in Canada. In fact, we've gone from an average of 6 months timeline to approve test kits to 1 to 7 days, and we are working diligently to make sure that all of the tests that are being sought to be used in Canada receive the appropriate Health Canada authorities.
Ms. Gallant.
Testing for COVID-19 antibodies shows how many people have already had the virus and recovered. Why doesn't the government want Canadians to know if they've already had the virus?
Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I reject the premise of that question. In fact, we're so proud of our academics and scientists here in Canada that have come together to form a serological survey consortium, which is actually going to allow us to have a better understanding of the exposure of COVID-19 in Canada and Canadians' relative immunity.
Ms. Gallant.
Other G7 countries are testing for COVID-19 antibodies. Why isn't Canada?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, underlying that question may indicate that the member doesn't understand the most recent science, which is that we don't understand a lot yet about the immunity of COVID-19. We know that people who have been exposed do have some antibodies, but what is unclear as of yet is what kind of immunity that gives them.
Ms. Gallant.
Canadians want to get safely back to work. Why won't the government allow testing for COVID-19 antibodies so Canadians can get back to work safely? They're using the same tests that are being tested here in other countries, and they're being allowed to go back to work in other countries.
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I'm not sure what information the member is pulling from, but I will tell you right now that the question of how we protect people in the workforce is of paramount importance, not just to the government, by the way, but to the workers and their families and to the sectors that employ them. We only have to look at sectors in our own particular country that have been hard hit, and there is no easy answer, but I will tell you, Mr. Speaker, we're working diligently with all sectors to answer that very question.
Ms. Gallant.
Why won't the government waive its 18% tariff on masks until domestic production meets pre-COVID-19 price points?
The Honourable Minister.
I want to thank the honourable member for that really important question. Canada, along with other like-minded countries, have committed to making sure that our supply chains, particularly for medical equipment and supplies, remain open, so that this important supplies get into the hands of our respective governments and people.
Ms. Gallant.
How many pairs of surgical gloves will be produced daily in Canada as of May 1st of this year?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there are numerous items of PPE being produced in Canada at the current time: reagent, face shield, hand sanitizer, gowns, and vents. We have complementary supply chains from international markets as well as domestic markets.
Ms. Gallant.
Are any surgical gloves in production in Canada right now?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, we've got complementary supply chains operating at the same time in order to keep Canadian healthcare workers safe. Thank you.
Ms. Gallant.
When does the government expect to have enough surgical gloves for professional health-related practitioners to get back to work?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I can confirm that we have ordered 1 billion nitrile gloves, and we have received over 12 million pairs of such gloves in Canada for delivery to frontline healthcare workers.
Ms. Gallant.
2 government planes returned to Canada from China to get PPE. Yet, so they returned to Canada empty. Yet a telecoms company was able to get 1.5 million masks. Why is that?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I can confirm that we've had 16 flights returning to Canada full with cargo. There was one flight that returned without federal cargo, but the flight did have other cargo on board.
Monsieur Gould.
Mr. Gould. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday we learned that in March, the Liberal government assured parliamentarians that the Canada-US-Mexico agreement would not come into force before August 1st, 2020. Now we know that the agreement will come into force on July 1st. Is the Deputy Prime Minister denying that she offered assurances to parliamentarians with regard to the date the agreement would come into force? That is the Canada-US-Mexico agreement. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the new NAFTA is the result of 3 years of very hard work by all Canadians. We came together as a country throughout the negotiations. The result is an excellent one for Canada, particularly today, when it comes to major issues with the world economy and about protectionism. This is good news for our country. Mr. Gourde. Mr. Speaker, as the Deputy Prime Minister knows, there will be significant financial losses for the dairy industry between the 1st of July compared to the 1st of August 2020. Why did this government break its commitment to respect the date of August 1st with regard to the coming into force of this agreement? The Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I wish to highlight for the honourable member opposite and for all the MPs here that for Canada, particularly today, this is an economic crisis that is even worse than the Great Depression. The world economy is facing a huge crisis. The reality is that we have a free trade agreement with the United States. This is a great success for our country. Mr. Gourde. Mr. Speaker, the new guidelines for the Canada Summer Jobs Program will fund 100% of student salaries without increasing financial resources for the program, which will limit the number of jobs for students this summer. Reinvesting in the Summer Jobs Program would allow more students to get important work experience for their future. Does the government agree to double the budget for the Canada Summer Job Program? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we did not decrease the number of jobs available under the Canada Summer Student Jobs Program. This is because we've always funded it. We have the budget. So we did not decrease the number of jobs. A week ago, we announced that we would create another 116,000 jobs, and we will continue to evaluate the programs to see how to create other jobs. Mr. Gourde. Mr. Speaker, the Canada Summer Student Jobs Program, with an illimited budget, could encourage hundreds of thousands of students to stay at home this summer without a job and therefore without gaining any important work experience for their future career. Mr. Speaker, companies across the country will be deprived of the resources they need to restart the Canadian economy in this crucial period. Is the government prepared to consider changes to its program? The Honourable Minister.
Everyone in this House that we're working with all parties to make sure that we do not disincentivize work. Quite frankly, students want to work, they want to contribute, they want to serve, they want to work in their communities, and we are doing whatever we can to make sure through the creation of the student benefit, but also through the creation of 116,000 extra jobs, that they have every opportunity to do so.
A very brief question, Mr. Gourde. Mr. Speaker, this summer we could make up for the lack of or shortages in temporary foreign workers through our Canadian students. Food shortages will increase if things are not changed? Is the government prepared to change the Canada Student to Benefit to help us in this way? The Honourable Minister has 30 seconds to respond.
Looking at ways to ensure that we create and incentivize opportunities, particularly in essential areas like agriculture for our students. Thank you.
Mr. Chu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Macdonald-Laurier Institute, it's a nonpartisan think tank which champions the value that led to the creation of Canada and its emergence as one of the world's leading democracies, a place where people may live in peace and freedom under the rule of law. On April 19th, the Chinese embassy issued a statement condemning MLI for its actually publication. Will this government stand up for Canada and its value against such unreasonable assertions by the Chinese Communist Party?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this government will always stand up for Canada. This government will always stand up for free speech and freedom of expression in Canada. And let me say that I personally hold the Macdonald-Laurier Institute in very high regard. I think I've given a speech there. It's a great group.
Mr. Chu.
Mr. Chair, I'm willing to share 30 seconds of my time for the member opposite to highlight how they're going to do that. Thank you.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister in 30 seconds or less.
I think I just did, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Chu.
In my humble opinion, she didn't. But anyway, let's switch over. Another question here. WHO officials believe countries were given much time to implement protective measure before its official pandemic declaration mid-March, and that countries like Canada should not have waited for the declaration to act, given the damage was so apparent in China. Yet the Canadian government insisting on delaying a practical response to protect Canadians and rely on the WHO to make their decisions. Why did this government not act sooner to protect Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the premise that underlies that question is quite frankly incorrect. In fact, in early January, Dr. Tam convened our first of our daily calls to discuss the ongoing outbreak in China and what that might represent for Canada. She also immediately convened the Special Advisory Committee of Chief Public Health Officers across the provinces and territories to begin planning for what potentially could become an outbreak in Canada. We also took additional screening measures at the borders, increasingly adding countries as the pandemic grew.
Mr. Chu.
Mr. Chair, the government of China has revised the death toll in Wuhan by increasing it by 50%. The health minister says that she trusts the data coming out of China. So does she believe the data was right before or after the revision?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I will point to the fact that data has been a challenge amongst all countries in this outbreak. In fact, the speed at which infections have occurred, the outbreaks and the intensity of the outbreaks in many countries, including some of our closest allies and partners like Italy, like Germany, like Spain, like the United States, has demonstrated that data is very difficult to gather when you're in the middle of an outbreak. I know that the World Health Organization, as are many other international organizations, are reviewing the data that's coming out of countries.
Mr. Chu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Taiwan has previously held an observer status in WHO under the name Chinese Taipei, but was unjustly removed due to the influence of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. Following their strong response to COVID-19, will this government of Canada acknowledge Taiwan's invaluable contribution to the global community and support it obtaining observer status independently again?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes, indeed. Canada believes that Taiwan's role as an observer in the WHO assembly meetings is in the interest of the international health community and is important to the global fight against pandemic and disease. We have experience of working with Taiwan as an economy in APEC, where Canada participates as well.
Mr. Chu, a very brief question, please.
All right, just a follow-up. The public officials in Canada have issued praise for China's swift response to COVID-19. What does our government believe it should learn from China and its response to future crises?
Well, Thank
The
you
Honourable
very
Minister.
much. The extent to which China tried to contain the outbreak from spreading to other countries was noted by public health officials across the world as extraordinary. I think there is lots to learn from all countries, and in fact, I think one of the lessons learned for all countries is that we can never let our guard down again, and that we will have to work even more closely and more collaboratively internationally to prevent future outbreaks.
Mr. O'Toole.
Mr. Speaker, it's good to see our parliamentary democracy back in action. The government is spending billions of dollars in this health and economic crisis. Much of that is needed to preserve jobs and help Canadians, but much of the support has been too slow and has made the economic crisis worse. One group of Canadians missed entirely has been our seniors. They're on fixed income. They're our most vulnerable. They're unable to work, and they've seen skyrocketing prices for drugs and food. Why did the government choose to give billions of dollars to groups that may help seniors rather than an immediate OAS supplement to help them immediately?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And we recognize that OAS and GIS are an important part of the retirement income Canadians, particularly lower income and rural seniors. Our government is committed to ensuring that during this COVID-19 pandemic, seniors will continue to receive without interruption the benefits to which they are entitled to. We are looking into the ways that we can support seniors during this very difficult time, and we are also working with partners to help deliver services on the ground.
Mr. Speaker, a few weeks ago, the Prime Minister confirmed the temporary closure of our country's borders, including Roxham Road, and he recently allowed the resumption of illegal passage here. Can he confirm that national security and the border should be fully closed? We can't do this, make this a half measure. The government made choices that were against the health of Canadian public. He made ideological choices. When will the Prime Minister close our borders for real? The Honourable Minister.
Unfortunately, in the question, the member opposite is simply misinformed. And in fact, we implemented very strict reciprocal arrangements with the United States to turn back all irregular migrants crossing our border during this particular medical crisis. During the month of April, not a single person crossed, for example, at Roxham Road. And I believe what the member is referring to is the application of the Safe Third Country Agreement, an agreement that has been in place between Canada and the United States since 2004, and its application at points of entry. Mr. Speaker, no one has entered this country illegally at all during any point in time since the implementation of these new measures.
Mr. O'Toole.
Mr. Speaker, the minister just said that we're going to stop illegal crossings just for this health crisis. Will he confirm to this House that after the planking of the curve, they will immediately allow the illegal crossings to continue?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you. Let me be very clear. What I said is that we have stopped all irregular crossings at our border during this period of time to ensure that, and it is for non-essential travel, to ensure the safety of Canadians. And those measures have been put in place, and they have been very effective throughout this, and we have undertaken, with our agreement with the United States, to continue these measures until they are no longer required.
Mr. O'Toole.
Mr. Speaker, I'll let Minister Blair take the time between the next sitting to review his first answer and compare it to his second answer. Thousands of small businesses and farms, Mr. Speaker, across the country have been asking their MP to increase the Canada Summer Jobs. In fact, the Prime Minister suggested there would be more, and they didn't give any more budget to any of the MPs. They announced $9 billion, Mr. Speaker, for students to stay home. Here's a proposal for Team Canada. Cut that in half, $4.5 billion. You can have over 400,000 summer jobs for essential services, for farms, where students will work. And you can still give them a $1,000 tuition credit for half of the cost of their $9 billion plan. When will they step up, like they did with the wage subsidy, realize they got it wrong the first time, and heed our advice to fix it now?
The Honourable Minister.
I thank the member for his question, Mr. Speaker. Our student measures include income support, increased job creation, tuition and Canada Student Loan enhancement, as well as an opportunity for students to serve. This is what we've heard from student organizations and students across the country. We are not disincentivizing work. We are ensuring that students can pay their bills and can actually continue on with their studies in the fall. With respect to Canada Summer Jobs, we're creating 70,000 jobs. We added another 76 or 116,000, depending on if you include opportunities to study last week. And we're going to look at what else we can do for students. Thank you.
Monsieur Perron.
Mr. Perron. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to get some commitments for farmers today, but I've heard earlier that CUSMA will be coming into effect in July. But in terms of compensations, there are sectors that they reached agreements with that haven't received funding yet. Can we have a formal confirmation that this money will be coming soon?
Agriculture.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to reassure my colleague that the commitments we made with the various commitments sectors in the supply management sector will be respected. We committed to funding for the dairy sector. We made the first payment, and also for turkey and poultry and eggs. There are other sectors also being affected by COVID-19, but I would like to confirm that we will respect our commitments. Thank you. The honourable member, Mr. Perron. Thank you, Chair. We submitted proposals for agriculture to increase, for example, the contribution of the Dairy Association, to also beef producers proposed a cattle program because there are issues in our country with respect to reduced production of beef. So I'd like to know where things are at and when will we have announcement in this respect. The Honourable Minister of Agriculture. Thank you. In terms of the potential increase in the credit for the Canadian Milk Association, well, this will require regulatory changes, and we'll have to look at that. And in terms of our other commitments, I'd like to reassure my colleague once again that we are continuing our discussions with the various representatives in the industry to be able to provide the best possible support to meet their particular needs, notably in the beef sector. Thank you. Were you sharing your time? So, the Honourable Member for Shefford, Madame Larouche. Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to go back to our seniors because they don't all live in luxury homes or long-term care homes. Many of them are having a hard time making ends meet. The percentage they pay on housing is more than 30%, and drug and food costs are rising. And often there are many tasks they can't do for various reasons. Seniors also have greater expenses during this crisis, and the increase in the GIS by $100 a month would help them. And unfortunately, the housing agreement that the federal government has not yet signed with the Quebec government would help many of these seniors during this crisis. Can the government put a bit of water in its wine to sign this agreement with the Quebec? Because our seniors have the right to age with dignity. The Honourable Minister. Chair, I appreciate the question of my honourable colleague greatly. Our seniors and our retirees have a greater need for support and services during this crisis. And I would like to remind seniors that we are there and for them, and they're not alone during this crisis. I said earlier that we will help to protect the financial security of seniors with several measures. But I'd also like to focus on the fact that we're also helping seniors to obtain essential products such as groceries, and we invested $500,000 to help seniors during this crisis, notably with $150 million for charitable organizations and not-for-profits, and $9 million for United Way, $100 million for food banks and food organizations locally, and $50 million invested previously in projects part of the New Horizons program. Thank you very much. We just have time for one more question. Ms. LaRouche, quickly. Very quickly. Quickly. Help for organizations, that's nice, but seniors also need direct money. That's why we want to increase their monthly payment by $110 a month after 65 years of age. The Honourable Minister. Quickly, Chair. We are taking concrete measures for benefits for old age security that these payments are made without delay and as quickly as possible. We're going to work at all levels of government to give the seniors the support they need.
Member for Chateauguay-Lacal, Madame Shanahan.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Puis je devrais...
Thank you very much, Chair. I would like to state that I'm going to share my time with my honourable member for Vimy. Chair, I'd like to say that I'm particularly proud and impressed by the efforts and the goodwill put forth by farmers across Canada. And of course, in my riding of Chateauguay-Lacal, as within the COVID-19 context. A large portion of my riding is located in what we call Quebec's Garden Region, where we find the famous black soil of the Naperville Gardens. I also had the privilege, since the beginning of this crisis, to see how dedicated our producers are, and they're able to transfer their questions and concerns to the government in terms of the arrival of temporary foreign workers, higher costs due to the mandatory isolation of these workers, and with respect to the risks of restarting agricultural production in the midst of a crisis. Can the Minister of Agriculture tell us about the measures that have been established by our government to support our producers for the 2020 season and to ensure local production and food safety for all Canadians? The Honourable Minister, Ms. Bibeau. Chair, in terms of temporary foreign workers, they are essential to food safety, and I'd like to reassure Canadians about very important measures that have been established to ensure that these workers won't be vectors of COVID-19 transmission. If they have no symptoms before they leave the country, when they come to Canada, they are transferred to their place of residence. They have to be provided with adequate lodging, and we follow all the rules of strict quarantine for 14 days. And we give them an amount of $1,500 per worker to help the food sector to meet their needs, particularly in terms of labor. And this is what we're doing in terms of financial support. Thank you.
The Honourable Member, Madame Katrakis.
Merci, Monsieur le...
Thank you very much, Chair. It's a pleasure to be back in the House. I'd like to thank my constituents of Vimy for their patience and their cooperation during this pandemic, and I'd like to reassure them that we're going to get through this together.
That the government has mobilized Canadian industry in this war against COVID-19, as we did during the World Wars. Several biotech companies in my own riding have joined the battle, and I thank them for responding to the call to action. Given the critical importance of medical equipment, supplies, and tests, can the Minister of Public Services and Procurement comment on our progress in mobilizing Canadian industry to meet domestic demand and even to export these life-saving products as a means of fighting the coronavirus? And what business and employment opportunities do these mobilization efforts create for Canadians?
Go to the Honourable Minister for Public Services and Procurement, Ms. Anand.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Chair. My colleague, well, the industry really rose to the call that we put out, and they actively provided answers.
Canadian business has totally stepped up. We have seen Canadian businesses from across the country motivated to produce domestic supply right here at home. Whether we're talking about Stanfields in Nova Scotia, Medicom in Quebec, Spartan in Ottawa, Thornhill Medical in Toronto, or Fluid Energy in Alberta, Canadian businesses from coast to coast to coast are stepping up to make sure that Canadian frontline healthcare workers have the PPE and other equipment they need to keep Canadians safe. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We have the time for a very brief question. Madame de Tracas. Approximately 15 seconds.
Mr. agreed that if we were fully self-sufficient, it would take the pressure off keeping the stockpile fully stocked and up to date.
The Honourable Minister.
We are working hard, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that we have domestic supply in place for many years to come. We are operating with complementary supply chains at the current time, ensuring that we have a flow of goods coming into Canada and being produced right here in Canada so that frontline healthcare workers have the PPE that they need for years to come.
Now, a brief pause in order to trade out the console operator. Just a brief pause here.
Is that correct? Yes.
Fine.
Now, with the Honourable Member for Peace River Westlock, Mr. Viersen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, over the past few days, flooding in the communities of Fort Vermilion, Fort McMurray, and Garden Creek have required emergency mass evacuations. These families and communities have already suffered through repeated attacks on their livelihoods in the oil and gas industries and the economic devastation of COVID-19, and now the loss of their homes. Can the Prime Minister confirm that his government has a plan to assist the flood victims in Fort Vermilion, Fort Mac, and Garden Creek?
Mr. Blair.
I thank the member opposite, Mr. Speaker, for that very important question. And like him, all of our thoughts are with the Canadians affected by flooding, as well as with first responders working hard to keep people safe. We are very mindful of the situation in Fort McMurray. I've reached out and spoken to both Mayor Scott from Fort Mac and Minister Madu about the situation. We have offered the government's help. We are mobilized and ready to respond. No formal request has been received at this time, but we stand ready to help when called upon.
Pearson.
Mr. Speaker, some farmers and small businesses in my riding are finding out that they're not eligible for the Canada Emergency Bank account, business account, because they don't have payroll or T4 summaries. Other businesses don't have an account with CRA. Can the Prime Minister confirm that the CEBA will be adjusted to ensure that farmers and small businesses don't fall through the cracks?
Ms. Ng, the Honourable Minister for Small Business.
I want to thank the Honourable Member for that question. Whether it's the farming business or the small business, everywhere in the country, in all communities, they're essential and really important to us. The work isn't done. We're going to continue to listen to those businesses and those farming businesses. And one of the things that I did hear loud and clear from businesses, though, is that they need support and rent, and that we are helping in that regard and other measures.
Back to Mr. Viersen.
Mr. Speaker, startups in my riding, like Jason, who just opened a restaurant in January, has no payroll records from 2019. Can the Prime Minister confirm that startups that don't have payroll records from 2019 will be able to be part of the economic recovery? Thank you.
And back to Minister, the Honourable Member, Ms. Ng.
Indeed, we have put out additional measures to support all businesses in Canada through the regional development agencies. There is support that is there for businesses that may not qualify for some of the other measures, and we will continue to work with businesses. The work isn't done to make sure that all businesses in the country are indeed supported.
Viersen.
For many of my constituents, they lost their oil and gas jobs months ago. Their EI has now run out. They don't qualify for the CERB. And with everything in lockdown, there's no job market. Their number one concern when asked on my Facebook page what the government's plan was to get the government, how are we going to get the economy back on track? Can the government inform this House with their plan to restore the economy, and when will Canada be revising its health restrictions?
The Honourable Vice Prime Minister.
Deputy. Vice-Premier Ministre, Deputy. Yeah, c'est difficile.
Deputy Prime Minister in English is difficult.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, I'd like to thank the member opposite for his question. And it gives me the chance to let everyone in this House know that yesterday we were very pleased to be able to publish a statement supported by all First Ministers, all the premiers of the provinces and territories, and the Prime Minister, agreeing to some principles that will guide us all across Canada as we move towards restarting the economy. This is a really important step, and I'll talk about it more in a minute, perhaps.
Honourable Mr. Viersen.
Mr. Speaker, with so many kids at home and spending time online, the risk of exploitation is significant. The RCMP's National Child Exploitation Coordination Centre has found out that predators are sharing their glee and delight that they now have a lot more access to kids and are coaching each other on the methods. Is the Prime Minister aware of the increased risk of sexual exploitation of children online due to the COVID-19 lockdown? And does the government have any estimates or models to protect children online?
Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, again, I thank the member for the question, and I think the protection of our children is our greatest responsibility. The RCMP Centre for Monitoring Child Exploitation is working very collaboratively and closely with all of our community partners in monitoring the situation. We recognize with a lot of children at home, there may be increased risk.
Well, moving on to Mr. Carey from Oshawa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I spoke to Lindsay Smith, a real estate professional and community leader in Oshawa with 30 years' experience. He fulfills the criteria for government small business funding, but does not have a business checking account, which is currently required to receive such funding. Many small business owners have found themselves in the same position. Will the government lift this requirement, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
I want to thank the honourable member for that question, and we are hearing that from businesses, and I want to assure the member that we are listening and working on it as we speak.
The honourable member from Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, Lisa Freeman is a constituent of mine. Her father's murderer was granted day parole on April 2nd. She was refused the right to attend the parole hearing by the minister. She was not even allowed to attend the meeting virtually. COVID-19 was given as the reason. No victim's right to face the person who changed her life forever, and now he's on parole. Will the minister commit to putting victims' rights first and at least allowing victims and their families to participate in parole hearings virtually? Yes or no?
Mr. Blair.
I'm very pleased to be able to advise the member that that decision has been made, and I agree. The initial decision of the parole board was to prohibit the attendance of victims at those hearings, but we recognized immediately how important that was, and steps have been taken to make it possible for victims to participate in those parole hearings virtually by phone and video conferencing.
Mr. Carey.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry said yesterday that since March, over 6,000 companies have stepped up to the plate to provide their services for producing PPE. Yet grave shortages remain, and many are complaining about the slow rollout of the government's licensing program. We need a made-in-Canada solution. Canadian manufacturers are up to the job and will create jobs in Canada. As of today, how many licenses has the government given to those 6,000 Canadian companies, and exactly how many pieces of PPE have these companies delivered to date?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Let me just thank the member opposite for the question and to say that we do have a made-in-Canada solution. I am proud of Thornhill Medical in my own riding, which even as we speak is manufacturing ventilators and has delivered some ventilators to the Government of Canada. Thank you very much. And in the member opposite's own riding, manufacturers are stepping up and producing PPE, as I am sure the member knows, and I'm sure he shares my pride in Canada's fantastic manufacturers.
Mr. Speaker, the question was how many licenses have the government given to those 6,000 Canadian companies?
The Honourable
Hi.
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I do have some numbers here. In terms of medical devices, we've authorized a total of 113 devices, 56 disinfectants, and 763 medical device establishment licenses. We have a number of others in review, hundreds in fact, and there have been a small number rejected so far based on lack of critical information, about 126. So we're making progress, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Carey.
And how many pieces of PPE have these companies delivered to date?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will have to get back to you with those numbers.
Okay. Mr. Carey.
Mr. Speaker, Charlie is the owner of a hair salon in my riding. His biggest concern is the health and safety of his workers and clients as he modifies his company to reopen post-COVID-19. However, he's worried about counterfeit products and has been unable to find and get a list of PPE distributors to keep his workplace safe when the health restrictions have been revised. Will the government commit to providing a list of PPE suppliers to business owners, yes or no?
Minister Anand.
Mr. Speaker, our government has been doing a number of things to assist local businesses and those in need across the country. In particular, we are working very hard with a working group on essential services to discuss how we can better help broader sectors of the Canadian economy outside of frontline healthcare workers. In addition, we have been assisting healthcare centres across the country with their PPE procurements from China to Canada. We stand ready to help Canadians.
Time for a brief question for Mr. Carey.
Mr. Speaker, the desired number of daily tests for COVID-19 is set at 60,000. However, on Monday, the Prime Minister admitted that this far into the crisis, we're only administrating 26,000 per day. What's stopping the government from reaching the desired 60,000 test mark?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as the member opposite notes, testing is an important strategy, is part of our multi-layered strategy to get Canadians back to work and our economy reopened. The testing capacity right now is about 20,000 a day across the provinces and territories. There are a number of different reasons why testing may not be at the level of 50 to 60,000 a day, but we are working with provinces and territories to make sure they have the equipment that they need and the strategies in place to reach those goals.
We'll now go to Mr. Soroka from Yellowhead. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, in my riding of Yellowhead, I have the beautiful Jasper National Park and the town of Jasper that is heavily reliant on tourism, which is now non-existent. Each year, they pay land rent used for municipal purposes such as roads, parks, and cemeteries. They have been told that the land rent will be deferred until September, but they still cannot afford it. Will the minister help the towns of Jasper and Banff, the only two municipalities in Canada that pay land rent to the federal government? Will they eliminate the land rent for this year?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for that question. And if I may say, the member is very lucky to represent the amazing town of Jasper, one of the most beautiful places in Canada. We are very aware of the challenges that municipalities across the country are facing, and we are very aware of the particular challenges that the tourism sector is facing, and we are working closely with municipalities across the country to support them.
Soroka.
Yes or no, but I guess I got to take it. Mr. Chair, meat processing capacity has been a major concern since before COVID pandemic. Now what can go wrong has gone wrong, and we're facing massive backlogs in both beef and pork sectors. Producers have been told the minister to stop dragging her feet and support the industry. Will the minister commit to announcing immediate relief to address the processing crisis in Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture, Ms. Bibeau.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The food processing sector is facing huge challenge right now because many of their employees got sick and they have to put in place better measures to protect their workers. Some of them had to close for a few days to a few weeks to get better organized, and it has a significant impact on our ranchers, on our producers. And I can assure you that we are having constant conversation to find the right mechanism to support them. Thank you.
Mr. Soroka.
Animals are being euthanized on this government's watch, not because of disease, but because of lack of action. We're wasting food when experts are warning of global food crisis. Some of the industry proposed measures, such as a set-aside program, which was effective in the past, has been on the minister's desk since December. How bad does this crisis need to get before the government acts?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture, Ms. Bibeau.
Mr. Speaker, we fully recognize the health concerns of workers in meat processing plants and efforts being made by processing to protect our staff. And this has a significant impact on our farmers and ranchers. We know that. And the business risk management are already there to support the farmers. I know that we are working with the provinces to make them work, more quickly. And I can assure my colleague that we're working with the sector to find the best mechanism quickly.
Mr. Soroka.
The Canadian Federation of Agriculture has come out with an Agri-Food Emergency Preparedness Plan, which focuses on the government's insufficient attention and capacity to the long-term security of Canada's food supply chain amidst this global pandemic. They say immediate action is needed, yet we've seen no plan by the minister or the government to address these concerns. When can we expect to see the plan for emergency preparedness for the agriculture and agri-food sector, and will the government take seriously the recommendations before them?
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We do take all these recommendations very seriously. I'm in constant consultation, yes, and discussions with the representatives of the different sector, because we want to find the best way to support the sector, because the challenges are different. They can already access the business risk management mechanisms. For example, agri-stability. It's possible for the farmers right now to get an advance payment. We are working with the provinces to see how we can use agri-recovery for different sectors. So there are already different ways that are there to support them. And I remind my colleague that we have increased the loan capacity of FCC to support them as well.
Time for a very short question, 15 seconds or so, Gerald.
Well, Mr. Chair, the $40,000 the Canadian Emergency Business Account is providing insufficient for livestock producers. For example, one pork farmer told me he qualified for CEBA, he'd only feed his hogs for 2 days. Hog prices have crashed. As of March 25th, COVID-19 is disrupting food supplies. Is the government going to announce a program geared specifically to agriculture?
Well, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have announced significant programs to support businesses in general, small, medium, and large businesses, and we are working right now to see, where the gaps are for the agricultural sector, and we will come back with further measures as soon as we can. Thank you.
And to the honourable member for Perth Wellington, Mr. Nader.
Mr. Speaker, on September 27, 2015, Marco Muzo got behind the wheel of a vehicle after drinking. His decision cost the lives of Daniel, Harry, Millie, and their grandfather, Gary. Jennifer Neville Lake was initially told she couldn't even give a victim impact statement and then was allowed to do it by phone. Even during COVID-19, does the minister believe that a phone call is adequate for a parole board hearing to let someone free after serving only 1 year for each life that he took?
Minister of Public Safety, Mr. Blair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I would join the member opposite in expressing my very sincere condolences to Ms. Neville Lake in the loss of her children and her father. And I want to assure the member and Ms. Neville Lake that protecting Canadians is a top consideration in all parole board decisions. But, Mr. Speaker, it's also important to understand day parole is an important part of the process of gradual supervised release, and these decisions are not subject to any political direction. They are made by the parole board independently according to specific criteria set out in the Corrections and Conditional Release Act. And as I've said, the ability of people to participate, victims to participate in these hearings has been addressed by the parole board.
Nader.
Mr. Speaker, processing issues were already an issue before COVID-19 hit, especially for the beef and pork sectors. The beef sector has proposed a set-aside program. It's supported by our opposition parties. It's supported by the industry. Will the minister commit to a set-aside program?
Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can assure my colleague that this is one option that we are looking at very carefully. Thank you.
Nader.
Mr. Speaker, the Cargill facility in Guelph processes nearly 3/4 of all beef in eastern Canada. Can the Minister of Agriculture confirm that there are adequate CFIA officials to maintain that plant?
Honourable Minister Bibeau.
Honourable Minister Bibeau.
I'm pleased to tell my colleague that we have increased the financing of CFIA by $20 million, especially to make sure that they have all the resources that our food processors need.
Mr. Nader.
Mr. Speaker, Conestoga Meats has halted pork processing for at least 1 week after 7 employees tested positive for COVID-19. What additional resources have been made available specifically to Conestoga Meats to maintain the pork supply here in Canada?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So just to clarify the situation, it is the responsibility of the business to put in place the right measures to protect their workers. They do that following the recommendation of their local or provincial public health, and the inspectors from CFIA are there to ensure food safety. Thank you.
Mr. Nader.
Mr. Speaker, during these times of COVID-19, when processing capacity is at an extreme limited amount, will the minister for the time being allow provincially inspected facilities to ship meat products across provincial boundaries?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will apologize if I did not get the question properly. I can assure my colleague that everything related to food processing is a very top priority for us right now, and we are making sure that the borders remain open so we can make sure that the food supply chain is fluent.
Mr. Nader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll repeat the question. Meat that comes from a provincially inspected facility, will the minister waive the requirement and allow that meat to go past provincial boundaries?
Minister.
Thank you to my colleague for repeating the question. I'm trying hard to work in my second language, and I appreciate it. So this is something that we are looking at with CFIA, with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, when it's needed. If we see a territory or provinces in a facing a food shortage, this is something that can be applied, and obviously it has to be done with the provinces.
Mr. Nader.
Mr. Speaker, communities like mine, where we have the Stratford Festival and Drayton Entertainment, are eager to know the details of the $500 million aid package for arts, culture, and sports industry. When will these details be made known, and when will applications open?
The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
These details, and I'm hoping that they will be made available in the coming days. Thank you.
Have time for one more, Mr. Nader.
Mr. Speaker, various farm organizations and farm groups have been pushing for many months now, before COVID-19 even hit, for a full review of the business risk management programs, including Agri-Invest and Agri-Stability. One of the concerns I hear on a daily basis is that farmers cannot take on more debt. Will the minister commit to a full review of these programs and explore non-debt options for these farmers?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can assure my colleague that I'm working very hard with my provincial counterparts to make the business risk management suite of programs much faster and not only rely on loans but on grants. Thank you.
Now we'll now move to the Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands, Ms. May.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Speaker. Welcome to. It's good to see the faces of friends and not just on our laptop screens. I want to start by positing that it looks in this pandemic as though the greater the degree of collaboration within a country, the more effective its response to COVID. A contrast, unfortunately, the United States versus New Zealand. Within Canada, we see New Brunswick has done very well. New Brunswick is the only province that has put together an all-party cabinet committee to confront COVID-19. I'm wondering if the equivalent of a war cabinet is under consideration by this government.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, like the honourable member, I do want to underline the degree to which Canadians have worked together. Across the provinces and territories with the federal government, we've been able to move forward on significant measures that have worked. And as the member herself has highlighted, the regular calls that public servants give to opposition members have contributed significantly in improving the legislation that we've put forward in this House in response to COVID-19. We will continue to collaborate, but we are not at this time looking at a war-style cabinet.
Ms. May.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the things that makes us think of war times, of course, is to see the enormous struggles on the ground of communities like Fort McMurray. I extend my entire, all Canadians are looking at that community and thinking, oh my goodness, how are they facing this? They've had the economic downturn and the fires, and now the floods. The other day, the Deputy Prime Minister referred to spring as flood season and summer as fire season. Before the climate crisis, we used to call them spring and summer. I'm wondering, in the context of this pandemic, acknowledging that we're also in a climate emergency, what preparations is the government taking to help house people under evacuation while maintaining the COVID public health advice?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
I thank the member opposite for a very important question. And we share a concern about the challenges facing communities that are experiencing flooding conditions and will eventually perhaps also experience fire conditions, and ensuring that we can safely house them during those climate emergencies that do take place in our country. We are already facing a situation in Fort McMurray, and we anticipate in the very near future in many Indigenous northern communities will also face a similar challenge in ensuring that we have safe housing. Historically, we would put these people perhaps in a community center, but that's not appropriate during this particular medical crisis. And so we are exploring with our provincial partners all of the ways in which we can safely house those individuals as they face those crises of flooding and fires in their communities.
Ms. May.
A quick follow-up. We have vast areas of British Columbia's
area where we've had forest fires that have wiped out the forest, like Elephant Hill Fire. Nothing's been replanted there. And as a matter of prevention to this hydrophobic soil, it doesn't take the water in anymore. When it rains, it just washes it right down into streams and brooks and rivers. I know the government spoke in the campaign, the Liberals spoke of having a tree planting program. Could that be applied in ways that would be an adaptation measure to help prevent floods?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Again, and I think it's an excellent recommendation, Mr. Speaker. And in fact, we have been in discussion with our provincial partners in discussing various infrastructure programs that we are prepared to invest in, which will also be intended to mitigate and to prevent some of these tragedies. Certainly a tree planting program, I think, could be very useful in these circumstances. And there are other significant measures, particularly for flood prevention, that will also have our consideration as we go forward investing in infrastructure across the country. I believe every dollar spent in prevention can save us an enormous amount of money in the eventual cure.
Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you. Turning to the crisis for our seniors, and I really want to commend the government. I can see we've been moving step by step dealing with the crisis that hits Canadians. There are a lot of people still being left behind. And in a spirit of pushing for more, I want to know when we're going to help our seniors. They're watching their retirement savings shrink. They're wondering when it's their turn to see some help.
The Honourable Minister for Middle Class Prosperity.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my honourable colleague for a question. As we've been discussing since the beginning, we've been supporting seniors with helping them get access to their GIS and OIS, and we will continue to do that. We have also invested to make sure that they get access to services at their homes or have access to more food. We will continue to work on seniors as we go along in this crisis. Thank you very much.
We'll now go to the Honourable Member for London Fanshawe, Ms. Matheson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government has decided to provide students not eligible for CERB 40% less in financial supports with the CESB. Why does this government believe that students eat 40% less, their rent is 40% less, and their overall expenses cost 40% less than other Canadians?
The Honourable Minister for Employment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, our government announced a comprehensive package of measures aimed at supporting students not only directly through a benefit this summer, but also by increasing Canada's student loans, Canada's student grants, and creating a number of additional jobs for students, and 76,000 new jobs, creating an incentive to serve, a recognition that students want to be out there working, and if they can't be working, they want to be serving their communities. This is a major wraparound investment in our students, and we recognize that that's what they were asking for. Thank you.
Ms. Matheson.
Mr. Speaker, has the government come to some deal that they haven't informed us of to allow students to pay 40% less on their daily expenses, or do they just think that students deserve 40% less?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, we believe that students need help both in terms of a direct income benefit as well as support so they can continue on with their studies in the fall by way of an increased student grants, increased access to student loans. We've created an opportunity for them to serve in their communities. They don't want to be staying home this summer. They want to be working, and if they can't be working, they want to be serving in their communities. Thank you.
Matheson.
So it's not just the students who have been left behind by this government. Many pregnant women who were laid off due to the COVID-19 outbreak are now wrongfully being denied access to emergency benefits. Some are even being forced to take maternity benefits early rather than accessing the emergency benefit program due to being laid off. Now, it's a simple fix. Change ceased working because of COVID-19 to unable to work because of COVID-19. When will this government listen to reason and do not only what's right for expectant mothers, but for all Canadians who need help and make this benefit universal?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, the fix that the member is referring to has to do more with the back-end systems at Service Canada and CRA, and we are working to ensure that no pregnant woman will be in any way denied her entitlement to maternity or parental benefits. And in fact, we are working very hard right now, and I can assure everyone in this House that this will be resolved as soon as humanly possible.
Ms. Matheson.
Glad to hear that, and I certainly hope to follow up with the minister. Single parents who rely on spousal or child support payments as their primary source of income and whose ex-partners can't afford to pay due to the pandemic do not qualify for help through the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. Disproportionately, women take on responsibility to care for children and are finding themselves struggling to pay for rent and food with no government or financial supports. Can the minister inform single mothers across this country how they will help them support their children without access to CERB?
Minister Qualtrough.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know that while we have made extra payments with the GST and the CCB, that's not enough for many Canadians who are struggling. As I committed last week in committee, I'm looking into the particular fact pattern the member refers to, and I will have a potential way forward as soon as possible. Thank you.
Ms. Matheson.
Will this government commit to work with provinces to create paid domestic violence leave and adjustments to working patterns for women exposed to domestic violence while teleworking from home, and work to ensure that victims of domestic violence are not penalized through loss of income or job due to their inability to telework or go to work if their work in sector is considered to be essential during this pandemic?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for her very important question. We're looking at a number of ways to support women. We've invested in shelters, but we know that there's a lot more to do, and I look forward to working with the member opposite to resolve this issue.
We probably have time for one more question. The Honourable Member for London Fanshawe.
So before COVID-19, current and future post-secondary students across this country were facing annual tuition fees on average of almost $65,000 per year. In 2016, students collectively owed $36 billion, $18 billion of which is owed to the federal government. So now our students have an inability to raise those funds through work, and it's threatened because of this pandemic. And while it becomes increasingly critical for workers to hold a post-secondary degree, today's students are being made to foot more of the bill for their education more than any other students in history. Our students are our future. We should be making our education more affordable and more accessible. Will this government work with the provinces to eliminate post-secondary tuition fees through a dedicated post-secondary transfer that meets the needs of our public education institutions?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, one of the first things we did in response to the COVID-19 pandemic was defer student loan payments, recognizing the anxiety it was causing on our students to have to figure out how they were going to make these payments every month. We're working to ensure by doubling access to Canada student loans and, quite frankly, doubling Canada student grants, going from $3,000 to $6,000. Students don't have to pay that back. For students who get a special grant, students with disabilities, students who have dependents, the $2,000 grant is being doubled to $4,000. Hopefully this will address some of the debt concerns the member has, and I look forward to working with her on other student issues.
Now we're going to move to the Honourable Member for La Prairie, Mr. Terrien. Thank you very much, Chair. We know that Canada was created in 1867 and the Canadian Constitution was signed between two founding peoples, the Anglophone and Francophone peoples. And when we went back to the creation of Canada, we always said this is when we institutionalized the minority status of Francophones in Canada. But the founding peoples have moved forward, and even Mr. Trudeau's father made Canada as bilingual as possible. But unfortunately, we've realized that the use of French in Canada has gone down. And the only protection to halt this decrease in the use of French in the rest of Canada is the Canadian government. We are lucky, in quotes, to have the Prime Minister of Canada, who is the son of the creator of Canadian bilingualism. And what we've seen recently is that Health Canada accepted goods from abroad and to be only written in English on their labeling. The Federation of Francophone and Acadian Communities has said that this flagrant lack of respect to Francophones, are you going to apologize to French-speaking Canadians? The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you very much, Chair. The lack of certain products on shelves is very probable, and given this situation, Health Canada took extraordinary measures to allow products with labeling only in English. It is important to communicate information in both official languages to Canadians. This is only a temporary measure to accept products while we fight against COVID-19. Health Canada will be providing information about these products in both official languages before they hit the shelves. Thank you. Mr. Terrien. Chair, I understand that COVID-19 is a special situation in Canada, but the problem is that it creates a precedent. And who says precedent says the future. We're looking at COVID-19. We're using it to trample the rights of Francophones in Canada. And we're saying it's because of COVID-19 that we're doing this. But this is the Trojan horse, Chair. People are laughing. People are laughing on the other side because the rights of Francophones are being violated. What is the Prime Minister going to do to ensure that this exception remains an exception? The Honourable Government House Leader. Chair, for this government, we have the utmost respect for both official languages. It is fundamental. What we've done in terms of legislation and what we've done for Franco-Ontarians, for Acadians, for Francophones across our country shows this. This is not at all a Trojan horse. This is just an exceptional measure in an exceptional situation. We would like to do things otherwise, but this is an exceptional situation, and that's what we're doing. We just have time for a quick question from Mr. Terrien. Chair, this is a Pandora's box that they've opened. And when you do so, everything comes out of this box. It's this beginning of the end. And what also comes out of this is hope. The answer from the Prime Minister is, we hope that we won't have to look at other exceptions. All that they're offering right now for Canadian Francophones is hope. Can he guarantee that this won't happen again? The Honourable Government House Leader. Hope and action. The action of this government over the years has been stronger than ever in terms of official languages and the respect of both of our languages for our Francophones and Anglophones. But my colleague, that I hope, who I have great esteem for him, we always work together, but he's creating a dispute here where there isn't one. We're working for all Francophones and Anglophones in this country in an equal fashion. Thank you.
Trail Eagle Creek, the Honourable Member, Ms. Block.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. According to a recent survey conducted by the Canadian Medical Association, Canada's physicians are calling for the government to be more transparent regarding the supply of PPE. Can Minister Anand tell us how many units of PPE are needed to meet the national demand for medical purposes?
The Honourable Minister of Public Services.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the Honourable Member for the question. On transparency, I'm pleased to announce that as of last week, we are putting up a weekly indication of our PPE procurements on the PSPC webpage, which is available for everyone to see, quantities ordered and quantities received in Canada for use by frontline healthcare workers. In terms of burn rates, which the Honourable Member mentioned, this is very difficult data to obtain, and we are seeking to obtain it so we can further enhance our efficient procurement.
Mrs. Block.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. For our purposes today, could the Minister please tell us how many N95 masks have been ordered and how many have been delivered?
Minister Anand.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member opposite for the excellent question. In terms of N95 respirators, we have procured or ordered 155.4 million, and we have received 5.3 million masks in Canada as of Friday of last week. That number is increasing as we have had a number of flights in Canada from China. Thank you.
Mrs. Block.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate that these numbers are now being posted on a weekly basis. While we have been rightly focused on procuring PPE for the healthcare system, as noted earlier, conversations are now beginning to take place across the country on how to safely start opening our economy. What measures has the Minister for PSPC put in place to ensure that Canadian businesses will have access to PPE for their employees when they begin to safely return to work?
Minister Anand.
I thank the member opposite for the excellent question. She's exactly right that we are continuing to think about the next phases of this crisis and the procurements of personal protective equipment. My department is currently procuring a wide range of emergency supplies and services based on requirements set by public health. And we are also focused on the needs of how we can help organizations regarding the needs of their essential services and the needs of PPE across Canada during the next phases of this crisis, which we are working hard to address.
Mrs. Block.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Earlier, the minister noted that Canadian companies from coast to coast to coast are motivated and are stepping up. Yesterday, my colleague from Calgary Nose Hill asked the Minister for ISED repeatedly to quantify how many masks are being produced per day here in Canada. It's a simple question which requires a straightforward answer. To Minister Anand, how many masks are being produced daily here at home?
The Honourable Minister of Public Services.
I thank the honourable member for the question. I would like to emphasize that there are multiple supply chains operating at the same time. While we are retooling and building up domestic capacity, including in the area of masks, we are importing masks so that we can make sure that frontline healthcare workers have the supplies that they need. It's complementary, it's continuing, and we're working hard to build up domestic supply.
Time for one last short question. Mrs. Block.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will take that to mean that none are being produced here in Canada at this time. Although ministers make continuous references to strong domestic capacity, but regularly fail to quantify what is being produced here at home. Can you tell us how many Canadian companies have offered to provide equipment and manufacturing capacity, and how many have received funding for retooling?
Minister Anand.
Thank you so much for the question. And just on the last intervention, I will say that we are procuring 335 million surgical masks and 155.4 million N95 respirators. And so we are making sure that Canadian healthcare workers have what they need while Canadian companies are retooling. In terms of domestic suppliers, we've had over 26,000 domestic and international companies respond to our buy and sell call out for suppliers. We have contacted every one of them, and we will be continuing to follow up to build up domestic capacity. Thank you.
Mr. Reyes, Richmond, Arthabaska. Mr. Reyes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government has introduced a number of measures in recent weeks in order to support Canadians. I'm thinking of the Canada Emergency benefit, the student benefit. There are also measures for farmers, entrepreneurs, etc. And I think that in some cases it goes against the incentives that the provincial governments have put in place to ensure that people can work on the labour market when we need them. So without questioning the fact that they want to help Canadians, my question to the Prime Minister is this. Before launching the measures, did the government consult with the provinces, make sure to consult with the provinces to ensure that they did not contradict measures already in place in order to ensure that economic recovery with Canadian taxpayers' money? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the question. We have a very close collaboration with all the provinces and territories, with the premiers of the provinces and the territories. Every week, we have a call between the Prime Minister and the premiers of the provinces and territories. And I would say that one of the successes in Canada's response to this crisis is the fact that we are working together. We are working together as Team Canada. Mr. Reyes. Mr. Speaker, when we talk to the different officials at the Department of Finance, when we call at 4:30, one of the questions that was asked was when an employee has lost his or her job as a result of COVID-19 because a company cannot continue to operate, they wind up with the $2,000 a month under the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. And now things are starting up again. They're being contacted to come back to work. And the officials are telling us that employees can refuse to return to work even if they have no valid reason to do so. My question is, if the idea is to help the economy recover when the company is ready to operate, how is it that we allow people to refuse to go back to work without a valid reason? The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, all of our initiatives are aimed at ensuring a connection and maintaining a connection to the workforce for workers. And one of the ways we're doing this is through the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. We know that workers who have been on the CERB, who are transitioning to the wage subsidy, have some questions about whether they can even go back to work. I can assure everyone we're working that out. We don't want to disincentivize returning to work in any way. This being said, Mr. Speaker, we cannot force workers to go back to a job. That's just beyond what we consider appropriate. But we would, in fact, encourage all employers and workers to get back to their jobs and be ready when the economy opens up and is on firing on all cylinders. Thank you.
Mr. Reyes.
Mr. Reyes, Mr. Speaker, for companies and enterprises to be able to open, they have to respect the very clear guidelines in terms of health. So we can't question what they're doing, rather just to validate it through the different governments. My question is simple. The government officials are telling us that we can tell people that do not want to go back to work to keep the $2,000 a month. They can refuse, and there will be no checks. And those are the words that were given by the officials responding to our questions at 4:30 every day. So is it acceptable for the government, for an employee who is being asked to go back to work when it's safe to do so, can refuse to do so or not? The Honourable Minister of Employment.
I commit to this House that we will ensure that our officials are clearly sending a message in their briefings that we want workers to go back to their jobs. One of the reasons we're putting in place the wage subsidy is for that very end. We're paying up to 75% of payroll so that we can ensure people are working. Mr. Speaker, Canadians have a number of different reasons for not going back to work, including childcare and other responsibilities. But I can assure this House that we're making every effort to get the message out that we want people to go back to work.
You have the time for a very brief question, Mr. Reyes. Mr. Speaker, in this economic recovery, I'm thinking of restaurant owners, bar owners, hairdressers, estheticians, and they can't qualify at present for different technical reasons. It's now April 29th. Can the government tell us today when will these people have a positive answer to get some assistance in this economic recovery that's already started in Quebec and other provinces? The Honourable Minister of Business.
Honourable member for that good question, and we have put out a number of measures to help businesses in Quebec and across the country to manage through this period. So whether it is getting access to a small business loan or getting access to the wage subsidy so that we can keep people employed. And in the very early days of both of these, we are seeing almost 500,000, so almost 500,000 Canadians, businesses who are getting approved loans to help them through this period, and over 60,000 applicants to the wage subsidy so that they can keep their employees together. So we are going to continue working to help these companies and entrepreneurs across the country.
This concludes the period provided for questions to ministers. Pursuant to order adopted on April 20th, the House has been recalled. The committee will now adjourn, and the sitting of the House will begin shortly thereafter. The bells will ring to call in the members, and the parade will begin the session.
Thank you.